Hi guys, welcome to the screencast for tomorrow's lesson on additional factors of the respiratory system that affect the respiratory system. So, call our notes are going to be, your key topic is going to be asthma, effects of altitude and hypoxia for me. Again, please can we create questions that are going to help you answer this when it comes to your lesson, as it will help you out in the long run with regard to your memory of these key topics. So the next slide is just going to show us some past paper questions. Okay, I'll go for the one on the left first of all. Discuss the effects of participating in swimming on the respiratory system for an individual suffering with asthma. As you can see, it's worth 6 marks, so it's worth quite a lot of marks in the exam. So we'll be going through that in more detail in tomorrow's lesson. We're going to get the basics today. And then another 6 marker in the exam. Sorry that you can't see this too clearly, but I'll read it out to you. The weakest part of Evan's triathlon is his running section. To improve this, Evan considers training at altitude to boost his performance for this section of the race. Analyse the immediate effects of altitude training on Evan's respiratory system. So once again, we'll be going through that in lesson in more detail. However, today in this screencast, we're just going to go through the very basics. So first of all, asthma. What is asthma? It's a common condition where airways can become restricted, making breathing difficult. Okay, so the airways become inflamed is what actually happens. And it just makes breathing difficult. The symptoms include coughing and wheezing, shortness of breath, feeling of tightness in the chest, inflamed bronchi, narrowed airways, reduction in the amount of air able to get into the lungs. Now, you don't need to know all of those, however, they are some of the symptoms of asthma. Now, when we have kind of adaptations to the respiratory system, so from regular training, will improve the efficiency of the respiratory system. However, this is an additional factor that may compromise and affects the respiratory system. Now, you can make asthma better, and that's something we're going to look at in class. For more information, if you are interested, you can look at this website here that will give you more information that is available to you. So altitude, what do we mean by altitude? You'll know it as altitude training, and we're going to be discussing it as altitude training. However, for altitude training, all we need to know is it's the practice by some endurance athletes. Okay, so it's not done by anaerobic athletes such as 100-meter sprinters. It is done by endurance athletes such as marathon runners and long distance cyclists such as Tour de France athletes. So it is practiced by some endurance athletes training for several weeks at high altitude, preferably over 2,400 meters above sea level or 8,000 feet above sea level. Now, you don't need to get those measurements down. All you need to know is training at altitude is a training above sea level. Now, one thing that students get confused with is they think, oh, if you're going to run up a mountain, that's altitude training. Now, if you go and run up a mountain in Wales, it's not really altitude training compared to if you go to places such as Peru, Colombia, Switzerland. There's several. South America as a whole is at high altitude. Switzerland, there's places in Switzerland that are at high altitude. So you'll get athletes that go to South America to train. You've also got New Mexico in America is at high altitude. Places in Africa are at high altitude, i.e. they are quite a few meters above sea level in comparison to England, for example. So you get athletes that go over to train at altitude because this has positive effects on the body and it helps endurance athletes. We'll go on in more detail in the lesson as what these benefits are, but you just need to get an idea of what altitude training means, what it entails. You can do altitude training in this country, but you'd have to be in kind of like a scientific laboratory where you have masks on and they kind of reduce the oxygen intake with these masks. It's all about at altitude there's reduced oxygen supply, so basically you have to work harder to enable to continue with exercise. And this has positive effects when you come back to a country that is not at altitude. So that's altitude training. With altitude training, there is something called hypoxia can happen. It's also known as altitude sickness. What hypoxia means is the deficiency in the amount of oxygen reaching the tissue. So that is what hypoxia is. And the symptoms include shortness of breath, dizziness, and headaches. Now, a way in which we can treat hypoxia, or the way in which our body, first of all, the treatment would be getting supplemental oxygen, such as going into hospital and actually getting an oxygen canister and getting more oxygen into the lungs that way. But a way that our body does it within itself is essentially breathing more frequently and breathing deeper that will kind of reduce the effects of hypoxia, i.e. trying to get more oxygen on board. So this is what we're going to be going through in tomorrow's lesson. Please get these keynotes down and I'll see you in class. Thank you. Bye.